look at who we have here, Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is so racist. The reason he went bald is because his hair was black. Stephen Miller puts the cyst in white supremacist. He's like if baby Hitler traveled in time to kill us.
Y'all know that's funny. It's only not funny if you are a racist, if you are a white supremacist, and obviously if you have black hair and you don't want anything black in your life. What's going on, everybody? You're in the building with Lamont Tyson, and this is how we do politics. We've got so much to cover today, and in a little bit, I have a special guest who's going to break things down for y'all. But let's talk about what's been going on so far. Someone tried to assassinate Trump again, and the questions we have, is this one real, ladies and gentlemen? Is it real? We have no proof to believe it's real, but I think in this situation, they've stepped up their game and their WWE antics. We'll cover that. We just saw how they want to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel because of that joke, and Melania. They're calling for Kimmel to be silenced again. Now, remember, this is supposed to be the party of the First Amendment and free speech when it's not. They have 30% of America in a bubble that will not get out of it and still think that it is okay to listen to everything Trump says as if it's gospel. We're going to cover that. Caroline Leavitt is coming out blaming the Democrats for this attempted shooting at the White House Correspondents Dinner. Vic Mensah, for my white people that watch me, he's a rapper, highly conscious, highly smart, who had a lot to say about that. Dana Bash, ladies and gentlemen, I've been told y'all, all white folk ain't skin folk that help the kin folk. I've been told y'all, Dana Bash is so far up the Israel asshole that you can see Benjamin Netanyahu through her nose. She gets on CNN the other day, and the way she worded how Democrats are the reason for this lets you know that everybody is in on this ruse. We've got that and so much more. We're going to get started right now.
I'm up early for the dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month. I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
What's going on, YouTube? You in the building with the all-knowing, all-loving, all-feeling, all-seeing, all-powerful. Just damn all everything. That's me, the sexy as hell host, Lamont Tyson, bringing you Politics of the Day with Trump, live from the beautiful studios of the Politics of Being Black studios. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you didn't know, I go live each and every day at 9:30 a.m. trading stocks live. And I would tell you to come and watch, because right now, while we have Trump, the buffoon in chief, who telegraphs a lot of the moves that happen in the market, on most days, it's very easy to go green. But then, of course, sometimes the market wises up. But if you want to understand how to trade stocks, come watch me. And then if you like the way I do it, you can always get a one-on-one with me right there at Calendly.com. And I use Trade the Pool as my prop firm for my trades if you don't want to blow all your money. Where do we begin? Do we start with the assailant that tried to shoot Trump, the alleged assailant? Now, they did a better job of picking out somebody who's a little bit more central casting, you know, a black guy, even though he's fucking MAGA. He works as a school teacher. I dare say he's even black, because if they really want to do this thing the right way, they should go get someone who's a registered Democrat, who's as dark as me, whose hair texture is like mine. This guy didn't fit any of that. And the security, ladies and gentlemen, either we was on janky promoters or somebody's security detail was so lax, you might as well be in the backseat of a Cadillac. Let's take a look at the story, ladies and gentlemen, and you help me understand what's really going on with this.
Now, the suspect accused in that shooting is expected to be arraigned today in a federal courtroom in Washington. Investigators say the alleged gunman wrote a manifesto that he planned to target Trump administration officials officials from the highest ranking to the lowest.
In an interview with 60 Minutes last night, President Trump described the tense moments when he and the First Lady were rushed from the ballroom. CBS News correspondent Bradley Blackburn has the very latest.
Moments after the sound of gunfire, Secret Service whisked President Trump, the First Lady, and other top officials out of the White House Correspondents Dinner in a ballroom at the Washington Hilton.
I wanted to see what was happening, and I wasn't making it that easy for him.
A long-standing Washington tradition, Saturday's dinner marked the first time President Trump attended the event as a sitting president. Less than 24 hours later, the president sat down with CBS News 60 Minutes.
I started walking with him. I started walking. And they said, please go down on the floor. So I went down, and First Lady went down also.
The president posted video on social media of the suspect, 31-year-old Cole Allen, sprinting through a Secret Service checkpoint, and later images of him after his arrest. Investigators say the California teacher boarded a train from Los Angeles to Washington on Tuesday and checked into the Hilton Hotel on Friday. According to police, the suspect exchanged gunfire with law enforcement. Only one person was hit, a Secret Service agent in his bulletproof vest. Law enforcement sources say the alleged gunman intended to target the president and other government leaders, and that minutes before the shooting, he posted a so-called manifesto.
He also wrote this: "I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes."
I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. You should be ashamed of yourself reading that.
You was just a few minutes away from an alleged assassination. And you have the nerve to tell CBS News, one of the good journalists left. Now, CBS News has gone downhill since Barry Wise, a woman who has her nose so far up Trump's asshole she can see what he ate for breakfast. You have the audacity to sit here and chastise this woman when she's just retorting to you what this man said, who allegedly is trying to assassinate your life. She's telling you what his motives were. And you're gonna try to cuss her out? Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting a legends alert. Hold on. Y'all hear it? It's a legend coming. It's a walking legend coming, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here he is. It's the big homie, the living legend. It's Larry in the building. What's going on, Larry? What is up? What's up?
What's happening, man? Yeah, I mean, come on, bro. You can't sit up there and tell this woman that she must be crazy or something because she's believing her eyes. I mean, we all know what it is.
Larry, honestly, I have seen better acting on Tubi.
Yeah.
No, I've seen better acting on WWE than this shit we dealing with right here. For real. For real. The fake action on wrestling is, and now mind you, Trump is familiar with WWE. And this guy that they got, Larry, why is it that they have pictures of him hanging out with Caroline Levitt before Trump got in office? Just
You know?
Why is there photos and social media of him caking up for Trump as recent as last year? And now all of a sudden, you want us to believe and pretend that this man went nuts over the Epstein files and he hasn't gone nuts prior to this. And the way he got through security, Larry, speak to the people. Let us know what's going on.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, it's just at some point, I was going to say at some point, the GOP, they have to wake up, but they don't. It's not even a matter of them having to wake up. They're fully woke. They are fully aware of what's happening, and they are 100% complicit in all of this. Like, that's 100%. What it is at this point. You can no longer simply sit back and say, well, I didn't know, or I wasn't sure. No, you know, and any inaction that you have or any actions actively, preventing the removal of him from office means you are complicit. I mean,
100%.
that's just what it is. I mean, the reality of it is this dude should no longer be here. I mean, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. Anybody who does not think that Donald Trump is a sexual deviant, it's like, do they not remember, you know, when dude said grab him by the pee and they let you do it because you're famous? You know,
Larry,
I mean,
Larry, that was locker room banter. Now, mind you, Larry, if me, you, P. Diddy, and R. Kelly said the same shit, it wouldn't be locker room banter. Okay, that wouldn't be. Oh, they're just boys being. It wouldn't be none of that shit. But if white MAGA Christian of all people said it's just locker room banter, Larry, stop it, Larry, stop it, damn, stop it, Larry.
Yeah,
stop telling facts. Stop it. Feel ashamed of yourself.
I mean, you hang out. I don't know about you, but I don't have any friends that I hang out with that are pedophiles. And if I found out that one of my boys was a pedophile, I'd have to be like, yo, homie, I can't ride with you anymore, because that's just it's a totally against my worldview. Like, I get it. We were cool before. We maybe had some good times. And it's not like I'm going to be like, all right, let me go grab my shotgun and hunt you down. But it's not going to be, I may not be like that with him, but I'm also not going to be like, okay, let's go get a drink and hang out and grab some beer and watch the game. It's just going to be like, look, I can't roll with you anymore. We're not cool like that anymore. You know? I mean, if I was friends with a white dude and it turns out that he's a Klan member or a neo-Nazi, but for whatever reason we happen to be friends, and then I find out about it, I'm not gonna be like, oh, that's all right, man, we're still cool. I'm gonna be like, nah, dude, we're not good anymore. We're not good, you know?
Well, Larry, for me, it's pretty much anybody who supported Trump this third time and still supports him. I'm not dealing with you no more. I done cut people off, Larry, because there's no excuse for it. And to me, there has really not been many excuses to vote Republican in the first place. I always knew that Republicans was a sham. I always knew that they would tell people to do one thing while they was busy doing something else behind folks' back. And I always knew that they used to always like to create little fires for you to look over here while they are the ones doing all the crooked shit. Something that makes me so mad in America, Larry. White collar crime, to me, is just as destructive, or even in some cases more destructive than quote unquote street crime, because street level crime that might shoot somebody in the foot and kill them is instant. When you take somebody's life savings, you put them through mental health, you put them through physical health, and then you oftentimes make them go slit their wrist anyway. So that's more trauma.
That's just one form of like white collar crime. You think about all of the corporations, you think about these CEOs and other people for these companies that know they're doing stuff like dumping chemical waste into people's waterways, knowing that it's going to cause people to get sick, knowing it's going to cause a whole generation of children in that area to get cancer. But they do it anyways. And instead of prosecuting these people, instead of saying, oh, we're going to go after them and we're going to criminally prosecute them, they just simply say, oh, we're going to allow them to go ahead and go bankrupt. And then the company just comes back the next day under a different name with a different corporate charter. And we're supposed to act like it's all good. Oh, no, they went bankrupt and this other company bought them for pennies on the dollar. Come on, man. It's just like, I think people have gotten so hip to what's happening that you can no longer sit back and hide behind a veil of ignorance. You can't do that. People know what's going on nowadays. So when you sit back and try and act like you didn't know, it rings as hollow as possibly could be. And you just look like the lying, trash hypocrite you are, because you are fully complicit when you support this stuff. You know what it is that's happening and you support it.
And on top of that, Larry, the people that know this stuff, some people know it, and then there are some that don't know it. And I think that those people that don't know it don't want to know it because they love what Trump stands for so much. But at the end of the day, it still don't make it right. And then for those that
you know it though, for those people who don't want to know it because they don't want to know it means that they know it. They know what's there, and they're turning a blind eye to it because if they can feign ignorance and say, "Oh no, I didn't know," you knew what was over there. That's why you decided not to look over there because you knew what was there.
Or they know that where there's smoke, there's fire, and for them, if they know something is wrong, but they don't know what it is, that justifies them. And for a lot of them, Larry, I'm gonna just keep it 100 with you. A lot of them is just pure hate, and hate don't feed your bellies. Hate don't put no money in your pocket to pay for the damn gas. But we have people, Larry, that have that much derangement syndrome in their mind to hate somebody that they are willing to watch Trump do bull job, like try to get rid of Jimmy Fallon, try to get rid of late night TV show comedians, because they want their hate makes them feel so much better than putting food in their belly and getting gas prices the way it should be. And they don't want to hear no talk of anything else, which is ridiculous.
That is it. That is absolutely the truth. There are so many, and I'm just gonna say there's a lot of white people out there in America that would rather be poor and struggle than do well, knowing that they are equal, or maybe a little less equal, or maybe a little bit more in some cases, to their black and brown neighbors. They love the idea that somehow their whiteness makes them superior, even if it means that they're going to remain poor and they can't eat, or they can't eat nutritious foods. They go to the grocery store and they're on their SNAP benefits and everything else, and they're sitting up there buying Mountain Dew by the cases with rot mouth and can't afford dental care, everything else. They'd rather live like that.
Yep.
Then acknowledge what the truth actually is and vote for the people that are going to make their lives better. Because for them, there's so many of those people where their whiteness and the ridiculous idea that somehow your whiteness makes you better than other people is so important to them that they would sacrifice everything else in order to maintain that. And it's so ridiculous and so sad, because if they just decided to put that stupid trash heap of an idea down and vote with the rest of us, we really could, as the Republicans like to say, make America great. I'm not going to say again, because I'm not sure America was ever great like they think it is, or was.
Now, Larry, after we get Trump and what he had to say about the shooting, he sends his little Rubbermaid bitch out there, Caroline KKK Lion Levitt, to say this. And then I got a good response from a very conscious rapper named Vic Mensah. His response to what Caroline Levitt said, and also to what Dana Bash, long nose ass, had to say. I'm so mad with Dana Bash. We'll get there, but let me show you this first.
Nobody in recent years has faced more bullets and more violence than President Trump. This political violence stems from a systemic demonization of him and his supporters by commentators, yes, by elected members of the Democrat Party, and even some in the media. This hateful and constant and violent rhetoric directed at President Trump day after day after day for 11 years has helped to legitimize this violence and bring us to this dark moment. Those who constantly falsely label and slander the president as a fascist, as a threat to democracy, and compare him to Hitler to score political points are fueling this kind of violence. The left-wing cult of hatred against the president and all of those who support him and work for him has gotten multiple people hurt and killed, and it almost did so again this weekend. When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day. The answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is that there is no difference at all. Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many.
Now, Larry, she forgot to say that we hear those words from the right wing. She forgot to say that part because there are a lot of dummies in that bubble that do hear these words. They see these words, but sometimes they don't attach the words to the people that say the stupid shit, like Elon Musk, the guy Alex Karp that runs Palantir, Peter Thiel, those type of people. But let me further show you someone else who's bought into the bullshit. CNN, Larry, has been on a downward trajectory since COVID because for whatever the reason, all these networks feel like they need to go more to the right than they need to be center or left. And listen to how Dana Bash couches this question to Jamie Raskins. Listen to this bull jive.
CNN's Dana Bash is an example of what failed journalism looks like. Look at her try to pin Congressman Jamie Raskin to blame Democrats for political violence.
And you have, as many of your fellow Democrats, have used some heated rhetoric against the president. And do you think twice about that when something like this happens?
But what rhetoric do you have in mind?
And then when Jamie Raskin asks a very simple question of an example of how Democrats have inspired violence, listen to her response.
What rhetoric do you have in mind?
Just talking about some of the fact that he, is terrible for this country and so on and so forth. I understand that that's your democratic right, but overall, do you have a responsibility?
So Donald Trump incites an insurrection. He then pardons 1,600 violent felons. He threatens to commit genocide in Iran and wipe out every single person. He calls the media the enemy of the people. He says Democrats are treasonous and should be hanged. He talks about punching people at his rallies and how he'll pay for the damages. A study by ABC in 2020 found that Donald Trump incited 54 acts of political violence directly inspired by him. Every other president combined, 0. Dana Bash sees all that systemic political violence and says nothing. But she points to Democrats calling that bad as the real issue. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Dana Bash is doing this because she's also a genocide apologist and is still silent on the genocide perpetrated upon Palestinian people. But this is what I mean when I say that corporate media has completely failed us. Stop trusting them to be honest brokers and to protect the needs of ordinary folks. We need new media. We need independent media. Be sure to subscribe and support so we can actually bring you factual information, not this right-wing propaganda trash that people like Dana Bash keep putting out there.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's what me and Larry are here for. Larry, speak on it. What do you got to say? Because Dana Bash, like I said, she is one of these folks who is so far in the Israel tank that she can't see the forest from the trees. She can't. And it's sad that organizations that used to be kind of in the middle, maybe lean left, have now gone so far to bend their ass to the right, Larry, that you would think they're trying to get to the West Coast. Floor is yours.
I was listening to something today, and they were talking about how Democrats and Republicans respond very differently to political violence. And it is so true because when you look at, for instance, anything that happens, it doesn't even have to be political violence, just any sort of inappropriate scandal, anything. Like if you look at Swalwell, Representative Swalwell, something comes out about him and they're like, look, dude, you got to resign. You need to be up out of here. We don't want a part of that because that's the way the Democrats respond. They respond with integrity and dignity and say, you cannot be a part of us if this is what you're doing. And then when you look at the Republicans and how they respond. Larry,
his ass was going in 3 days.
Right.
3 days.
And if you look how Republicans respond to stuff, I mean, remember when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked and almost killed when dudes broke into his house and beat him to almost death with a ball-peen hammer, and Republicans got up there and made jokes about it, laughed about it. Donald Trump made jokes about this man, the husband of our Speaker of the House, almost being murdered. and he made jokes about it. And that's just one example. And it's crazy that they want to sit up there now and try and act all high and mighty and say the fact that Democrats are criticizing this man politically and saying he is bad for America and bad for democracy is somehow inciting violence. And the fact of the matter is he is bad for democracy. And because America is a democracy, he is bad for America. It's not even something that is a debate. It just is. He doesn't even fact. He does it's he fact. Has been running in-runs around Congress. He has been signing all of these executive orders. He's been doing everything that he can to consolidate power in the executive branch and make sure that the legislative branch and the judicial branch are basically put off to the side, and he can do whatever he wants as some sort of king or dictator. And that is not what America is about. That's not how we're designed. That's not how our constitutional republic works. And that is why he is bad for America. Democrats are not inciting violence. Democrats are merely speaking the truth. That is what it is.
But you know what is at the basis of all this, Larry? At the basis of people like Dana Bash and Caroline Levitt saying this stuff, they realize that their base is so uneducated that they fall for the banana in the tailpipe with this information. They really fall for it. They fall for it, Larry. They really fall for it.
I just wholly disagree with that. I think that they are not so uneducated that they're falling for it. I think they fully understand what it is and they're okay with it, because I think Donald Trump allows them to feel like their whiteness is intact and their superiority is intact. Because I can guarantee you that if Barack Obama was doing what Donald Trump is doing, if Joe Biden was doing what Donald Trump was doing, these people would be fully aware of what was happening and how it was against our traditions, our laws, our rules, our Constitution. They'd be fully aware of it. And they would be out there screaming and yelling and fighting and everything else. But because it's their racist guy, they're okay with it. So I don't give them the excuse that they're ignorant. Ignorance is something that can be rectified. What they are doing is acting fully aware of why it is they're doing it and what's happening. There is no excuse for them. There is no excuse for them because they know what's going on.
Now, I do think that some of those folks in the religious bubble, I mean, I agree with you to a point like this. There are those trad wife women who are in this religious bubble who we can't give them credit because they are living in the same world we're living in. And no matter how much they want to stay in their Bible study and all that shit, you hear and see what's going on around you. And if you turn your blind eye to that, ignorance of the law doesn't avoid you of the law, and definitely ignorance of life does not absorb you of what's really going on in life. And to support what Larry is saying, check out Vic Mensah. He's a rapper. He's very conscious. He's aware of what's going on. His rebuttal to everybody trying to say Democrats are the ones spewing rhetoric. Take a listen at this, Larry.
They had a shooting at the White House Correspondents Dinner over the weekend. Now, I'm not saying it was staged, but in The Sopranos, them niggas blew up a restaurant to build a new one. Mob behavior. I mean, a nigga tried to sell the new ballroom 10 minutes later. All the Republican men hiding behind their wives. Kristi Noem and her husband don't know who should be shielding who. And now there's all these tweets about how political violence has no place in our country. So where does it have a place? In other countries? Perhaps in Gaza. That'd be a perfect place for it, right? Or maybe in Cuba. Definitely Iran. Or maybe if you're a third grader, political violence is cool for you. I always have a problem with that. Police brutality is political violence. ICE, purely fucking political violence. Renee Good, Keith Porter. My man Suavell just came home from a 29-year sentence, wrongfully accused. That's as politically violent as it gets. What y'all really mean is political violence has no place killing you. Perfectly acceptable for the rest of us. 90% of fucking Republican Congress members are funded by the NRA. You love guns so much, nigga, learn to dodge bullets.
Floor is yours, Larry. But you can't knock that shit, Larry. You can't knock that.
He said, "Learn to dodge bullets." Well, damn.
Right. Hey, dodge them bullets, baby. And this ain't dodgeball, it's dodge bullets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, well, I'm not going to say nobody supports political violence. There are clearly people that do. I don't support political violence under most circumstances. Sometimes violence is what is needed. I don't think it should be the first option.
Nope.
But sometimes that's what it is. I mean, I know people often mistake the civil rights movement for a nonviolent movement. It was not a nonviolent movement. It was a violent movement. It was just that the protesters, the civil rights leaders, decided to allow themselves to have violence perpetrated upon them, so the rest of the world could see how bad things really were. But it wasn't a nonviolent movement, because clearly there was violence involved in that movement. It was just not on the side of the black folks and people who support civil rights. But to what this guy's speaking to, yes, they're okay with political violence as long as it doesn't touch them. Once it touches them, then they're like, oh, this is so bad, we have to do something about it. Except they're really not talking about doing anything about it, because they don't care about gun violence. They don't care about any kind of meaningful firearms reform. They don't care about any of that crap. I mean, at least when Reagan got blasted, they put together a assault rifle ban. They're not even willing to do it. Donald Trump has been supposedly, shot at twice. I mean, I don't know. There's been all kinds of speculation about whether or not he was actually shot or shot at in Pennsylvania.
Bro,
and then this thing last night.
Larry,
I mean,
it's Donald
ridiculous.
Trump. Is Donald Trump Wolverine, Larry? Do he have healing factors? Because that ear would be fucked up. I do still have a degree in medicine, and I just don't use it. Nobody's ear is gonna survive and grow back the way Donald Trump's ear did, unless he went and robbed Rubbermaid and had it stitched. And if that would have happened, we would have heard about that. We ain't heard nothing. Floor is yours again, Larry. My bad.
I mean, Evander Holyfield's worth what? I don't know. At the time he got his ear messed up, what was he worth? 20, 30, 40, $50 million? Had the best plastic surgeons. His ear, you can still tell his ear got bit up. You gonna try to tell me that Donald Trump's ear is perfect? I mean, that dude, come on, man. I mean, all this stuff is so silly and so ridiculous.
It is.
Don't get me wrong. I am not someone who says violence should be used just as a willy-nilly way to try and get your way. I'm not saying that at all. Violence is, if someone attacks you, you could attack them back. But this idea that somehow Democrats are more violent than Republicans, or that one party is more violent than the other, I think is ridiculous. I really do. But I will say this, is that I know that these Republicans for a long time used to sit up there and call Democrats a bunch of snowflakes and say, oh, they're a bunch of wussies and snowflakes and everything else. And if you have looked around the world at all and looked at some of the political movements, you will see that people on the left can be and have been just as violent as people on the right. And I say this, and have said this even back then, it's like, do not underestimate what someone can and will be willing to do because of their political affiliations. People will feel a certain way and have a certain amount of conviction. And when they reach a certain point where they feel like there are no other options, the only option left is violence. And for those people who feel like there's no option left except for violence, it doesn't matter if they're a Republican or a Democrat, if they're left or right or independent. When they get to that point and they feel like violence is their only option, their political affiliations just don't matter.
Well, you tell that to the folks that ride at the Capitol. Their political affiliation was all about supporting MAGA and Trump. They went in there, they took poops on the Capitol, they stabbed up some people, they hurt cops, and that was all violence incited by the Republicans. And Dana Bash, somebody forgot to tell that snowblower nose bitch about that. why you ain't bring that up. But anyway, lad, let me move on to the last subject. Go ahead.
You
go
know,
ahead.
this whole thing, and I, I understand that people have their biases, whether they are unintentional or intentional. But the thing that gets me when people talk about Israel and they talk about, the Palestinians, there is no justification at all for murdering tens of thousands of women and children. When they talked about all of I think they said there was somewhere between 20 and 30, Hamas fighters in Gaza, but you've killed far more military age males than that. So
exactly,
by their own numbers, they should have killed every single Hamas fighter, but you're also killing women and children. You're killing non-combatants. Like, there's nothing that you can tell me or say to me that will justify you killing 6 and 7 and 8-year-old little boys and girls. There's nothing you can say to me that will ever justify that. And the fact that some of these people, because of whatever their motivations are, whether it's because because they're Jewish and they support Israel because of their ethnic and religious beliefs, or because they're Christian and they believe that Israel has to rise up and they have to create, because a lot of people don't understand, there's a lot of Christians out there that support this nonsense because they believe that if they support Israel and they can allow all this stuff to happen, they can usher in the second coming of Christ. They believe that they can create the conditions for the second coming of Christ. And a lot of Christians out there support Israel and all this violence as a consequence, just totally ignoring the fact that the Bible says that he will come like a thief in the night. You don't know when it's going to happen. You cannot create the conditions for which God is going to send back his son. You cannot do it. And the fact that some people think that you can, it is such a high level of arrogance. I think to myself, how do you fix your mind and your heart to call yourself a Christian when you think somehow that you as a man have the power to manipulate God? Like, that just seems blasphemous to me on so many levels. It is such a high level of arrogance and ignorance also. It's just, I don't understand how people can think that and believe that. It's just so ridiculous to me. But they do, and a lot of people get up there and they truly believe if they do this stuff, they can usher in the second coming of Christ. And I just think I think it's wrong. And I think a lot of Christians find themselves supporting violence, when they should be standing up against it because they think somehow it's going to help them.
Which is ridiculous, folks, ridiculous. But y'all let us know what you think. Last story we're going to cover is one of the smartest young progressives we've got. And I am so thankful that this young man and a whole handful of people his age are out here stumping for democracy, equality, and things that make life more fair for everybody. Because I always contend, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why that 90% of life is unfair is because 90% of human beings make the shit unfair. This is my boy Dean Withers. Take a listen at how CBS tried to screw him, and it'll make y'all chuckle because y'all know this dude, when he get on a debate stage, he shuts the shit down with facts. Take a look.
I'm sick and tired of sitting on this information. I've given CBS the benefit of the doubt for half a year now, but it looks like they just want to sweep this under the rug, and I'm not going to let that happen. 6 months ago, CBS flew me out to Washington, D.C. for an in-person debate about the Trump administration. And they paid for everything from all of my travel expenses to a really nice hotel room, a studio, and a 4-person camera crew. The debate was between me and some MAGA influencer, and it was moderated by Maurice Dubois, who is a nationally acclaimed news anchor that had been working with CBS for over 21 years. And I'm going to be honest, it didn't go well for my opponent at all. I was able to very effectively point out the failures and shortcomings of Trump, his administration, the GOP, and the way that the right kind of approaches politics in America as a whole. Which included many things that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know because it's very inconvenient for their narrative. And coincidentally, this thing filmed like right before Bari Weiss took control over CBS. And in my opinion, I think that she canned it to censor the truth. And if you don't know who Bari Weiss is, she is a pro-Trump propagandist who took control over CBS last year. And one of the very first things we know that she did is the fact that she censored a documentary going over the very inhumane conditions and the torture that occurs in Sica in El Salvador. I've reached out to my contacts at CBS multiple points over the course of the last 6 months, and I've heard nothing in return. Like, they may have even blocked my number. So, now I'm asking publicly, CBS, what the fuck happened to the debate?
Yeah. Well,
Dean, you know what happened to the debate, man. Like,
yeah.
honestly, Larry, it's not that hard if you're sticking to the facts and you have a robust mind and you've lived life. You understand the facts, and it's not that hard to debate these MAGA people because they don't get up there with facts. They get up there with feeling. I feel this way. This is how I feel. There is no real policy that supports the greater majority of the people in America. Their policies only support a small sliver of Americans. And it is so easy to get up there and tongue lash them with facts. Why would they show that? And Dean has a huge audience, a huge audience. Floor is yours, Larry.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, it probably did just get shelved when what's her name, Bari Weiss came in there.
Bari Weiss, yeah.
She came in there. She probably saw it and just said, "No, we're scrapping that. We're not airing that." Which, I mean, it's their prerogative. They can do that if they want to do that. But the reality of it is that when you start having these sort of so-called debates, people that are going up there to debate, and I don't know who the person was he debated, but most of the people are going up there pretty well prepared, And the thing is, on the MAGA side, when you can't,
Larry, what MAGA person have you ever seen? Larry, MAGA politicians don't go nowhere prepared for debates, Larry, let alone an influencer. God.
True, but the thing is like oftentimes you will see, like, I mean, he's dead, so I'm not going to speak too ill of him, but like someone like Charlie Kirk, he used to go to college campuses and debate these kids, and oftentimes they weren't. At least from what we saw, because we have no idea what we were really seeing because all that stuff was edited. So the people that really could have been mopping the floor with them just never got shown. But
true,
he often would go and debate people that were just, maybe they were just casual consumers of news or whatever. They're walking by, he has a sign, debate me, whatever. He posted. This is all he does. That is all he does, is talk about politics and try and promote his side of things. So unless you have someone who's equally versed in the subject matter to talk, you're going to find a bunch of kids on college campuses or elsewhere that just don't have, the ability to articulate their thoughts and feelings in the moment like that, because that's not what they do every day.
That's true.
And so it's an unfair debate now. But when you take two people who are supposedly well versed in the subject matter from two opposing points and they come together, I believe the MAGA people are going to lose every single time, because there is no way that you can justify the violence for which has been perpetrated against the American people with ICE. There's no way that you're going to justify the cruelty that we have seen from these ICE detention centers, the separation of children and parents, the people getting sick, sleeping on cold concrete floors with no blankets, with inadequate or completely just absent health care, with food that is substandard at the very least. You're not going to find it. You're not going to find any support for people saying, you're not going to find any real meaningful support for people saying, we are going to basically send you off to a third-party country that is not your own. We're not going to say you're going to deport them to some third-party country and throw them in some high-security prison in a country that's basically going to say, okay, we're going to keep you locked up here forever, when these people have committed no crime in that country at all. Nothing. Like, there's people that are being sent, that have been sent from America, that have been deported to countries in Africa. These people have done nothing wrong. Why would you be imprisoned in Africa or in El Salvador or somewhere else when you have done nothing wrong? You're not going to find the vast majority of Americans to support policies like that, because it's completely asinine. And we all recognize that if they do that to them, it is just a matter of time before they start to do that to us. And most people recognize now, like, hey, we see what's happening. We see the threat. We know what's going to happen if we don't stand up to this. And we don't want that crap. We do not want to live in a country where you could be driving down the street and get picked up because you were at a protest the weekend before, and you get picked up by the police because you got flagged in some database, and now you're on a plane being sent to a prison camp in El Salvador or in Ghana or Liberia or wherever else they have these things. No one wants to live in that kind of country. No one wants to live in that world. And so people are standing up, and you're not going to find support for those policies when people are debating. You're just not. So
you do find support for, here's where Republicans used to think they could win. But Larry, you've been knowing me before. You've been knowing I was political before I even talked about politics. And you know, with me, it is always the hypocriticism with the money. It will never end. Republicans used to come to a debate table, and the only ironclad argument they had was fiscal policy. Well, now we do know what I've been telling y'all for years. That shit was a hoax. These fuckers ain't fiscal. What they want is to cut taxes on the rich, but keep fucking spending you, the working man's money. And they just would never come out and say it. And now their actions are saying it. When if you go back and you check literal policy, you would see that when we lean more socialist, meaning everybody got to use everybody's money more under Democrats, that's when the economy was humming better. Because people seem to forget the economy is a circle. The economy is not just the people at the top of the circle that trickle down fucking money. That's not just the circle. That's just a part of the circle. You still need the people who are consuming and spending. And when you gut check them, take away their ability to spend more, don't increase their wages, and then you squeeze them with inflation, that circle shrinks and all the money gets metamorphosized to the top, to the 1% that already control all the power and money. That was the only argument Republicans had, and now fuckers' eyes have been open to this shit. I'm waiting for all y'all to thank me, because I was saying this before it was cool to say. I was back there with Bernie saying it when y'all was telling me, Lamont, you're a socialist. And I would tell y'all, no, the 1% are socialists too. And y'all was like, oh no, yes, their asses is the biggest socialist in the country. Last word goes to you, Larry.
Yeah, man, I've said this for a long time. It's like, it doesn't make sense for those people at the very top to not want to have a better distribution or more equitable distribution of wealth amongst all the citizens of their country. Because eventually what happens when you have too much concentration of wealth at the top is you end up with violence. You end up where people finally say, I've had enough.
Enough is enough.
And then they will just say, we are going to kill you and burn your shit down. We have nothing to lose. And when people say, oh, you can't kill your boss. Yes, you can. When either
Larry,
one, you don't have enough to even pay your bills. And when you work and you can't afford to buy a house, you can't afford to feed your kids, you can't afford health care, and you can't afford to clothe yourself. When you are working and still can't support yourself or your family, people get desperate. They feel like they have nothing to lose. And it has happened time and time. Look at Iran. Iran was in absolute financial turmoil, still are.
Yep.
But the people were so sick of this shit. They
Yep.
finally hit the streets and said enough is enough.
Well, Larry, look, you could take it a step further, Larry. We historians, every great civilization crumbled to some degree because too much power got concentrated at the top. That was the downfall of almost every single great nation, ladies and gentlemen. Just think about Europe and how the settlers came here because too much power got concentrated at the top with the queen and with religion. So fuckers came here and said, oh, we love this. We're going to start it here. Think about the Roman Empire. Think about the Greek Empire. When too much power got concentrated in one area, that was the rocks in the foundation that started to crumble. Simple as that.
And this is the thing. When you look at something, when you look at a place like China, for instance, right? You look at Xi Jinping. He's been concentrating power within the party. He's been getting rid of rivals. But you know what he also does? He also makes sure that his people have new cars. They can afford to buy TVs. They can take trips overseas to U.S. and they can go buy stuff at the Hermes store and Prada bags and come back with stuff. They're doing way better than they had been in the past. And people from the country have moved into the cities. They're getting apartments, and it's not perfect. I'm not trying to say China's perfect, but what Xi Jinping has done is basically what a lot of countries have done. They have made sure that the vast majority of their citizenry have enough that they're comfortable, that they're happy, that they're pacified. And then they can go ahead and just reap and pillage the rest of it and live these fabulously wealthy and extravagant lives. And the people will allow it to happen because they're comfortable. But when you make people uncomfortable, when you have so much money that you can't do anything with it anyways, like these people, you can't like the amount of money that people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all these other billionaires, the amount of money that they have, they cannot spend that money. There is not enough stuff in the world for them to buy so that they can spend that money. And so, and so when the rest of us look around and you see people who are saying, you know what, this is some bullshit. I've been saving for the last 19 years to buy a house and I still can't afford one.
Damn.
You know? I mean, there are people out there like that. There are people out there that's
like y'all. I want y'all to know I'm not laughing at your pain. It's just the way the man's saying you've been saving for 19, and it's sad, but it's true. It's true. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's pathetic. We have allowed the government to get away with this banana in the tailpipe for so long that we are literally at that point. We're at that inflection point, ladies and gentlemen.
Here's something interesting. I was watching a program, and I'll stop talking after this. There was watching a program last week, and they were talking about, I think it was from the Wall Street Journal or something. They were talking about home ownership in this country, and these big hedge funds in collusion with home builders. And when people talk about why aren't you guys building more affordable homes, and they say, oh well, we can't afford to do that, yada 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 yada. All these excuses. But then here's what happens. They build homes for the hedge funds and they say, and then they turn around and they, instead of sell these homes that they would turn around and sell to us for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, they're selling to them for $150,000. And then those hedge funds are turning around and renting them out. And they're buying them for $150,000, but then they're saying, "Oh no, this is a home that's worth $600,000, so we're going to rent it as if it was a home that's worth $600,000." But what it shows is that these home builders can afford to build homes that are affordable. that we could buy. They don't have, like, if you can sell these homes to a hedge fund and at $150,000 a pop and make a profit, make such a profit that it makes sense for you to do this over and over and over again, there's no reason that they cannot sell to the consumer at that same price. Because I can tell you right now, I live in the Washington, D.C., suburban area. If anywhere around here, if you built a new development, forget $150,000, double that, say it's $300,000, and let's say there were 400 homes in that development, and they said we're selling these for $300,000, I guarantee you that entire development would be sold out tomorrow. And I know I would own one. But they don't. They don't do that. No. Instead, what they do is they build these developments around here, and they put the starting price at the high 900,000s. Now, you tell me, who can afford that? Who can afford that? Because I know there's some around here that is still sit empty. They talked about these homes in D.C. They built these big buildings, and they tell people, hey, you know what? They had the rent starting at like $3,800, $4,000 a month for a 2-bedroom. Damn. And instead of saying when the building's at when the building's only at like 22% capacity and the rest of it's empty, instead of saying like, hey, we're going to go ahead and reduce the price so that more people can afford to move in. Instead, they don't do that. Instead, what they do is they'll say, okay, well, we're going to give you 6 months of rent free. And we're still going to keep the rent the same. But basically what they do is they reduce the price out of pocket because they're giving you 6 months of rent for free. Instead, because that's their way of sort of saying, okay, we're still going to keep the market value at $4,000, but because we know you can't afford $4,000, we're going to give you 6 months free rent. So you really only have to pay $2,000 a month for rent. But it keeps the price, the values, the so-called value of the area high. It's all fake. There is no real value in that. And I said, I don't get why do all that. Just allow people to be able to afford to move in. Because the problem is, if you do that and I go to qualify, I have to show that I can afford $4,000 a month in rent, when really I'm only going to be paying $2,000. But I have to show I can afford $4,000 a month in rent, which locks a lot of people out of the housing market, even for rentals. It's just, our system is so thoroughly broken that I think it's just a matter of time before people really rise up in such an ugly way that it forces people to do something. Because you can't tell people you can't afford to rent, you can't afford to buy, and if you live on the side of the road in your car or an RV, we're gonna go ahead and criminalize it so that you can't do that either. You can't criminalize just living. Like, people need housing. You can't criminalize people desperate and trying to keep a roof over their head.
And at the end of the day, Larry, this is why we need guardrails and regulation. And mind y'all, I am a businessman who has been in some heavily regulated areas, and I rolled my eyes because I was trying to do business the right way. And the reason why these businesses are so heavily regulated is because you got MAGA cons trying to do shit the wrong way, and then they screw it up for everybody else. And we need to have guardrails in place to protect us from this type of thing. But folks, your boy's got to go. I got to Zoom. I got to hop on. Go ahead. Hurry up, Larry. We got 30 seconds.
All right. I just want to quickly say that if you haven't noticed, a lot of people from America and Europe are leaving and moving to other countries where it is more affordable to live. And those people in those other countries are getting real pissed off because in places where where in their countries where they used to be able to rent an apartment for the equivalent of $100, $200 a month are now renting for $1,000 a month because people who are used to paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month for rent are moving there and thinking $1,000 a bargain. And so it's jacking up the prices other places too. But people are so desperate, they're saying, I would rather leave my country and afford to be able to live a decent life than to be homeless in my own country. So
that's what
we need to fix it.
Is that how y'all make America great again, MAGA? Leave your comments because I know y'all want to say something. Be sure to go check out Larry's channel. His link will be in the description. Larry, I'm going to holler at you tomorrow because as soon as we get off, I got to go jump on a Zoom. Y'all don't forget to like the video. Come back and check me out for the shorts tomorrow.
Somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body.